What's up YouTube, Jeff back again from DopeTechDaily.com. Today I'm bringing you guys a video I promised, the Moto Z2 Play versus the Moto Z2 Force. One of these phones is really expensive, the other one is priced pretty nicely, especially on Verizon, where you can get this phone. I think they had a deal where you could get it for like 300 bucks or something crazy at one point. The Moto Z2 Force is priced around 720 bucks. It's on multiple carriers. Verizon did send me out the Z2 Force review. I bought the Z2 Play myself. If you look at the actual bodies of the phone, it's kind of hard to tell in the back what's different. Of course, the Z2 Force has got this black color, brushed aluminum color. On the back here on the Play, you've got just a gray color that's matte. You've got the little connections on the bottom for the Moto mods. The other big difference is the dual cameras on the back of the Z2 Force. I'll show you guys some camera samples in a bit and we'll compare them. They both have 12 megapixel sensors. Of course, this one doesn't have the dual camera. It's also got a different aperture, f1.7 versus f2.0. If you move around front, you can see things are a little different on the two phones. You've got the front-facing LED flash a little different. It's swapped on the sides. The camera is swapped. Same type of fingerprint sensor. The Moto logo was moved from the top on the Z2 Play to the bottom on the Z2 Force. Absolutely no idea why they decided to do that, other than just making it look a little different. On the sides, you can see that the volume buttons and the power button right there, they're in the same exact spot on both phones. If you look at the top of the two phones, you'll notice some differences as well. You see the SIM tray right there is on an opposite side on the Z2 Force as it is on the Z2 Play. They do have the antenna band in the exact same spot. If you look on the very bottom of the phones, this is one big difference that's actually a victory for the Moto Z2 Play. In my opinion, you've got a headphone jack on the Z2 Play, no headphone jack on the Moto Z2 Force. Really a puzzling decision because the Z2 Force is the more expensive phone. And if you look at the side profile of these two phones, the Z2 Force isn't actually that much thinner than the Z2 Play. It's a little bit thinner, and you can't really feel it when holding them, to be honest. I don't know why they didn't make it a little bit thicker and put a headphone jack in there. The other big deal when it comes to looking at the side profile and seeing that the Z2 Force is so thin is they also fit a smaller battery in there. So the Z2 Force here has a 2730 milliamp hour. The Z2 Play has a 3000 milliamp hour. That's a huge step down from last year where both of these phones, the Z Play and the Z Force First Edition, both had well over 3000 milliamps in capacity. So that's from the outset, the differences on sort of the build. You can see here the display also has some differences to them. On the Moto Z2 Force over here, you've got a P-OLED 2560 by 1440 display, which is shatterproof. Of course, it's higher resolution, but also it does get scratching significantly on the display. It also collects fingerprints pretty bad, but so does the Z2 Play. I'll talk about that in just a second. You can sort of see the fingerprints all over my Z2 Force. But because of that shatter resistance, if you just so much as scratch this with your nail, it's going to get scratched up pretty bad. And in my time using it, I do have a bunch of little surface scratches throughout the display. I think that's unavoidable. You pretty much need a tempered glass screen protector with this particular phone. Over on the Z2 Play, you have Gorilla Glass 3 on the front, and you've got a 1920 by 1080, so 1080p Full HD screen on here, which looks very nice. And to be honest, the color on it and the brightness isn't too much worse than what's on the Z2 Force, which I think is interesting because you're paying a whole lot more money over here. And personally, I like the touch of the glass to the hand when you're navigating around a lot more than the P-OLED display. And also because it's Gorilla Glass, you don't get the scratching issue. Now, of course, if you drop this phone, you can certainly expect the glass to shatter because it's not a shatterproof screen. But in terms of the overall feel of navigating around the phone, I prefer the glass on the Z2 Play. There's not a huge difference in terms of the color output and the brightness. The P-OLED, probably a little bit brighter, but it's not noticeable, certainly not for the price difference. As I mentioned, both of these do get horrible fingerprints on them, so you definitely want to get something to wipe that down. You can see I got fingerprints all over this one and also the other one. I was eating some delicious Oreos earlier. Of course, got to have that with the new release of Android. I mentioned last time in my accessories roundup a new product which I've been using to wipe down my phones, and I'll show you guys again right here because these two are already messed up so much. This is the mini eye roller. Highly recommend it. I'll drop a link below if you want to check it out. It opens up. It's got some tacky material here which you can just use to clean your screen, so you can just roll it like this right along the screen and it restores your screen to like new condition. It's really impressive. It's better than a microfiber cloth, which I've promoted before in my videos. So you can see here on the Z2 Play, If you look at it now, absolutely no fingerprints or streaks on the display. And the same thing, the Z2 Force. Again, I've got a whole bunch of marks all over this one, so let me just go ahead and show you that it also works great on the POLED display as well. So if you wipe that down with the mini eye roller, it's going to look like brand new, other than the little scratches I have, of course, thanks to the Shatter Shield display, but absolutely no fingerprints or streaks. So again, I'll drop a link below to Amazon, to the website for the mini eye roller. It's really cool. You can clean this under just water, so you don't have to worry about it getting super dirty. And again, it does get it a lot cleaner than a microfiber cloth, so I highly recommend this product. They make a larger one for tablets as well, the eye roller, and they also make one to clean your glasses. So if you've got eyeglasses like I do, they make one that will just sort of roll around a little tip on the inside of your eyeglasses. Does a great job of cleaning it. All right, so a huge shout out to them for sending that out too. It definitely keeps my phones a lot cleaner than they would be otherwise. All right, so that's the display. The next thing, of course, are the internals. So let's talk about the difference in smoothness between them. We've got the Snapdragon 835 over here, the Snapdragon 626 in the Moto Z2 Play. Is there a huge difference in day-to-day operation? In my opinion, absolutely not. I've been using both of these for about 3 weeks now, and I can tell you, if you're doing day-to-day tasks like email, social media, etc., there's really not a difference in the performance overall. What you do get in the 835 is much better gaming performance if you're playing things like Injustice 2, if you're playing any like high definition racing games, etc. But for basic gaming performance, like just playing puzzlers, like, you know, games that are just for wasting 10 minutes, Candy Crush, you're not going to see a huge difference. You do get extra processing power in the image signal processor, which does benefit the camera in the Moto Z2 Play, and that's the biggest difference from the Snapdragon 835 to the Snapdragon 626. Now there is also a model of the Z2 Play that has the 4 gigs of RAM as well, so you don't have to give a RAM difference on a certain model of the Z2 Play. So in terms of the overall specs, I don't know if you're just a casual user. The 835 is probably not worth it, especially not for $400 more. And if we talk about the battery life, the 835 is not as efficient. It's a much more battery hungry processor. So if you're running a lot of these big games like I was talking about, you're going to see substantially worse battery life. I've seen about 5 hours on the Z2 Play, about 4 to 4.5 hours screen on time with my regular use on the Z2 Force. So that's the performance overall. I think both of them, you know, perform very well. For the average user, the Z2 Play would probably be a better pick. Fingerprint scanner is great on both of them. You have the one button navigation, just like I demonstrated earlier this year when I talked about the Moto G5, the G5 Plus. So it's a pretty cool feature if you want to get some extra screen real estate. I personally like the on-screen buttons myself. And then the next thing to talk about is the camera. So what I'm going to do is show you guys some quick camera samples, and then we'll come back and take a look at a couple of these photos that I took on each of the devices, and sort of we can run down and compare each of them one by one. So we'll go ahead and take a look at the slideshow, and we'll be right back. All right, YouTube, we're back. So just take a couple look at these photos I took with both cameras. The Z2 Force does come out on top, in my opinion, especially in macro shots. You do get better depth of field. So you can see here I've got on this side, you guys saw it in the slideshow yourself. On this side over here, we've got the Z2 Force on my left. On the right, we've got the Z2 Play. You do get better brightness. You also got better detail when you zoom in here. And also if you zoom out and look at the overall picture, much better depth of field, of course. You've got that dual camera sensor, which is nice. You can also use the depth effect. This is one I took without the depth of field mode. If you zoom in, you still got better detail, better brightness overall with the picture. You've also got a little bit more of the sky in the background, a little bit of more of that HDR type look, whereas in this one, the sky is pretty much completely absent. This one was taken at dusk. Inside the mall here, taking some photos of some light fixtures. Again, if you zoom in on both of these guys, you'll notice slightly more brightness on the Z2 Force. You'll also notice slightly more detail on the light fixtures and also some of the store signage that's behind the two phones. These are just some various different colors I took. This is a photo I took inside a store. My wife was shopping, the Gold Star. Again, a pretty constant theme. You get a little better brightness, a little better detail on the Z2 Force over here on the left, But is it worth that $400 difference? That's the real thing here. And for good lighting, it's really not a huge difference that I'm going to say, wow, this photo is awful and this photo is amazing. Same thing with the shoe here. I actually think the Z2 Play might have did a better job on the right here in this particular situation. Looks like the brightness is a little better, while on this one, if you zoom in, you will notice slightly more detail on this particular photo, but I do like the color and brightness on the Z2 Play. And then those are pretty much the ones I took from both cameras, so just a few comparison shots to give you guys an idea of what you can do. I did take a depth effect photo, a single flower here with the Moto Z2 Force. Of course, don't have that on the Z2 Play. And then I also took a selfie with my wife and I right here on the Z2 Force just to get some ideas of what it can do. So pretty good overall effort from both cameras. I definitely think that the Z2 Force is the better of the two cameras. Of course, this camera software is the same on both phones. You get the same exact Motorola interface, which is pretty nice, very clean. You know, keeps all the options out of the way. The main difference is you've got the depth effect right here and true black and white mode on the Z2 Force, whereas you just have the basic modes on the Z2 Play. But for the average user, is it really worth that extra $400 that you're going to pay? I don't think so. I think if you want to take good photos in daylight, and you want to get decent photos at night, the Z2 Play can certainly handle that. I think at the end of the day, if I had to sort of summarize this comparison, the Z2 Force and the Z2 Play, you're paying for the dual camera and you're paying for the Snapdragon 835. You get Moto mods on both of them, so all things are pretty much equal there. And at the end of the day, Snapdragon 835, dual camera, and the shatterproof display, it's not really enough for me to say that it's worth a $400 difference. If you're someone who drops your phone a lot, it might be worth it for you to have that Shatter Shield display. Unless you're a heavy gamer, I don't see the Snapdragon 835 being a huge determining factor to make you pay $400. And the dual camera, to me, I don't really care too much. The portrait mode, it is a cool little feature to have, but you can get good depth of field on the Z2 Play if you're very good at photography and you use the professional mode. Alright guys, so that's pretty much my overview of the Z2 Play versus Z2 Force. I think both are good phones, but I think for the average consumer, especially if you can get this for like $300 on Verizon with a trade-in deal or whatever, the Z2 Play is a great buy at that price. Alright guys, so I hope you enjoyed the comparison. If you did, please hit the like button, subscribe so I can make future videos like this. Find me at dopetechdaily.com, Google+, Instagram, and Twitter at the links in the description. I appreciate you guys checking out this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks a lot for watching.